Hey guys, welcome to the live stream. So this is kind of like a little post show we could say to the live stream we just had for our presidential election prediction. And by the way, I kind of do apologize for doing. I'm kind of probably gonna shift a little bit my video schedule, like how I do the videos and stuff, because I started school like in person yesterday after a long pandemic time. So now sometimes I might just go live for one of the videos instead. I don't know if you guys liked how that worked. It work. If it doesn't work out, I'll just figure it out. But we're gonna talk today right now about many different things that are just happening in the political world. I wanted to jump on, talk about my prediction, what you guys agreed with, because I couldn't see the chat, and since the video was gonna be uploaded after, I couldn't do too much interaction with you guys. So I just wanted to talk to you guys in the chat right now and just have a quick chat about politics. And I'm gonna start by saying the following things. Over the last week, we're seeing many crazy developments over this election, and really the nails of the coffins for President Donald Trump. Nothing is impossible for something to happen. However, we're seeing one clear thing. President Donald Trump is behind, and his diagnosis with COVID-19 is making him fall more behind. So, hey, Joel. Hey, Dylan. How are you? Okay, so Dylan asked, do you think we will have final election results on election night? It's possible. Now, the thing is, with a matter of fact, that with Joe Biden leading by the numbers, he's like in the polls, we have a 14 plus poll for Joe Biden at a nationwide level. It is very possible that we might be able to see a result for that number for Joe Biden. However, chances are that we're not, especially since a lot of those key swing states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania are probably going to take long time counting votes. And keep in mind, these states have been slow at counting votes normally. Now with a mail-in system in place, having all the results and having the voices of every single American heard, I wouldn't count on it. I agree with everything you said in the other video and so far in this one. Okay, thank you so much. I'm trying to be an unbiased voice, bring you guys the data and things that you guys have. And for President Trump right now, things are not looking good. That COVID-19 diagnosis, one, it has been a media stumble for him. Like, he has no way to come up from this, talking about it in a communications way. In a communications way, he's going to have to fight very hard. And you could say with the argument that it helps him, he gets more press, and he gets press, but it's not necessarily good one. Which for President Trump, he needs good press. With bad press and the bad press he has been getting, not only because of them being just unfair, because that happens only probably less than half of the time. It's sometimes he says things that are just taken out of context. It's things that he says and does. So I think that thing really affects Donald Trump, especially with his COVID-19 diagnosis. You could have looked at it in two trains of thought. It's really going to help him out, but it's not necessarily. So thank you, DG Davis, for this super sticker. I really, really appreciate it. I thank you very much. Dylan, so you said Trump removed ads from Ohio and Iowa. I saw, and I think it's very, very interesting what we're seeing here with the those ads. Because here's the thing: the Republicans are very, very short on money, and that's something we cannot neglect. And the fact of the matter is that since they're far behind, I think it's with money wise. They're not raising much. They're doing very, very little things. That I think at this point in time, for the Republicans, they're going to have to start prioritizing. They have 10 million races, Senate races to focus on. That's true. The Republicans are behind on Senate races. The presidential race is almost lost. And at this point in time, the Republicans, not to be an armchair quarterback for Republicans out there, however, they're far behind. And I think right now for the Republicans, I think they should just save all hopes they have, throw all the bones they have to the Senate, if they have to let Donald Trump lose by a landslide. However, I think it's very we have to see that they have to think about their sources strategically. Ads on TV aren't as effective as they used to be. They're still effective. They reach millions of Americans. However, not as effective. Yeah, so Politic Talking says, I think the diagnosis could help him because if he survives, hopefully, he can say that it's not that bad. That's true. And also one thing I was analyzing is that just looking at the medical sides of things, he took the drug that was or it's not a drug, but the chemicals they had that were testing, the remdesivir. I can't pronounce it. It's one of the very long medical words. However, That is a very good look for him, showing that he's trying to get a COVID-19 cure already, and he's part of the treatment. They're treating it on him, and I think that's going to be a good look. However, looking at how he has, I think for Donald Trump, he was doing very well until the caravan, I guess, or the going out in the parade, I guess, what you could call it, in front of Walter Reed. That was the biggest media thing he could have done, and he blew it up. He shouldn't have done that. And for his campaign, if he was thinking ahead for a strategic way, he shouldn't have done it. And I think, honestly, that's going to hurt him. So Dylan asks, do you think the Democrats will flip the Senate? At this point in time, the Senate for the Democrats is looking very, very good. They have a ton of races that they are leading in, and even in some Republican seats where the Republicans were expected to win, even by 10 points in the case of South Carolina, Democrats are leading in polls, and the Democrats have the momentum. What do we know from past elections? If you have that momentum, chances are you're going to achieve great things. And I think at this point in time, the Democrats have the momentum in this race, and they've been able to use all the different tools they have, whether it be ads made by them, commentating in the media, making the media not like Trump, and using everything Donald Trump has said against him politically. Smartest move by the Democrats. So I think at this point in time, we're seeing a very, very big trend that the Republicans are far behind. At a nationwide scale, the House, forget about it. It's not going to happen. Senate, it's 50-50 right now. I mean, not 50-50. It's a little bit more lopsided towards the Democrats. However, behind. Presidential race, almost lost. So yeah, hi John and everyone that's coming into the chance. Yeah, so I mean, the Democrats right now are ahead. And I mean, if you're a Republican out there, you either have to start raising some money or figure something out, because it's going to be a tough night for Republicans on November 3rd. I will tell you that. A new poll in West Virginia race only has Jim Justice up by 11 points. And here's the thing. That is a good point. 11 points. I mean, and this close to election day, it's probably nothing that's going to happen. And they shouldn't even waste money on that race. Now, I mean, 11 points in a state, that shows like maybe it's like lowering the margins and things like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, the impact is not going to be huge. What do you think Trump and Biden should do to win the election? So at this point, Biden should just stay calm, not have any gaffes, don't say anything stupid. Kind of, if he goes with the tone to the election, similar to what he did in the first debate. Joe Biden's first debate performance was astronomical, but he's kind of stayed quiet, and sometimes being quiet helps you out. And I think at this point in time, Biden has that momentum. He can't be out in campaigning too much because that might really hurt him. Now, for the president, at this point, it's very hit or miss what he can do because he has very limited options. Just looking at the electoral map, the pathways for the president are pretty much locking up. We have the Rust Belt currently, right now, at very, very small margins. And I think at this point in time, it's going to be very, very hard for them. And we're looking at a race for the Republicans where they're going to have to win in Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin, and Arizona. So President Trump, I think strategically the best thing to do is throw away the presidential race, feed everything to the Senate. Thank you, John. Okay, so Neptune says, I seriously hope tomorrow's VP debate is more civil than last week's presidential debate. You know, I think at this point in time, we might be looking at a race where we might actually be seeing a more civil debate because, again, we're talking with Donald Trump here, and Mike Pence is a lot more calm in a sense that he has like a little bit more temperament than Donald Trump. And I think at this point, that's really going to help the debate flow very well. Kamala Harris is a good debater. I want to see what happens because at the end of the day, many things could actually end up happening. And just looking at the way that things have been going for this campaign, I think Kamala Harris would be a pretty good debater against Mike Pence. Mike Pence probably will do better than Trump, and I think the debate is going to be more well received. However, the impact is probably not going to be anything. It's probably a waste of time compared to the presidential debates, which are pretty huge. I think you should cancel the rest of the debates. I think at this point, maybe they should, because, first of all, for healthy reasons, like, if we just see the last data that we have, with the whole COVID-19 spread amongst Republicans from the White House, and most likely from the White House Rose Garden nomination thing with Amy Coney Barrett, it's going to be a disaster, because that could start spreading, and it spreads around Republicans and Democrats. Just for safety reasons, it's a possible if. For civil reasons and just for, wasting time on the debate, I think the debates have, again, pretty iffy they should be canceled or not, because they have an impact somewhat because, again, at least the presidential ones, especially the town hall ones, are usually what impacts the minds of Americans the most because it's not answers or questions from Chris Wallace or some other news anchor, but rather real Americans that might be in the same shoes as them. So I think at this point in time, we're looking at debates that are going to be crucial, but I think at this point in time, it's almost a lost cause. One, because Donald Trump's really behind, but that's really not a reason to cancel the debates. I think the reason is for order and flow, and I think truly, if the Trump campaign does not agree to the new debate rules proposed by the Federal Commission for presidential debates, then I mean, no, it's probably not going to happen. If Biden decides not to go to the debate October 15th because Trump is COVID positive, what would be the impact on the Biden campaign? So I think it's really not going to have a real impact on the Biden campaign because, again, it's a safety reason and I think it's a safety concern. However, I mean, there's going to be some different impacts, which realistically not going to be huge. Who will win the VP debate? I think it's going to be pretty close. Kamala Harris might end up with a victory because she is very good at debating. She's a very fierce debater, and we can see that it's very probable that Kamala Harris will win the debate. However, Mike Pence is someone that I think could win the debate, but since he's more calm about stuff, I'm not sure if he's going to be a talk dog. And that's the thing about these presidential debates. There's many different ways you could say this person won or this person lost. This person won, this person lost. Many different ways to do that. And I think, in my eyes, the best way to is balancing both out. Giving good points in a more calm manner, as well as being the vicious attack debater that we kind of saw with Donald Trump. And if you guys watch my last debate video, I gave the victory to Donald Trump because I value the calm talking directly to the American people and the fierce attack debating, the same thing. Both candidates did both things. And I think if we go off that metric, I would say that Kamala Harris is bound to win. Not impossible for Mike Pence to win the debate. So John asked, is Iowa still hard to gag? Yeah, I mean, Iowa right now is in a weird position. I think we're looking at a race in Iowa where we're going to see over the next 2 weeks where a lot of these voters are thinking, because in the state of Iowa, we must remember, most of these demographics, they just traditionally vote Republican. Very, very Christian. And just looking at the recent data we do have with very, very, very low poll numbers, or not low poll numbers, but decreasing poll numbers for the Republicans, state of Iowa looks more and more, again, a little bit further, and I think for the Democrats, it's looking closer. Now, the thing to understand here is that we're going to have to see that Joe Biden does not have as much momentum as someone as Barack Obama did coming into 2008. And, I mean, it's hit or miss because Barack Obama's momentum was different to the Joe Biden momentum. However, we're looking at a race where truly we won't know until the last day. So let's see some of the chats we're getting in the chat. So Want to Know Politics asks, how do you like the little speech Joe Biden had about Venezuela? I mean, overall, I mean, I'm going to tell you this because I know a lot of you guys know, and for those of you that don't, I'm a Venezuelan immigrant. I used to live in Venezuela for over 6 years. I came to the United States, and I'm an immigrant to the United States. And looking at about the things that Biden says things and the way he goes about things, especially when it pertains to that issue, we're not looking, I don't think, at I mean, as a strong response. That may just be a very, because Biden needs the Venezuelan voters in Florida to have that win secured. He's leading amongst the older voters, which is some part in the middle part of the state. But South Florida has pretty much, I would say, even been leaning towards Trump a little bit more because the Venezuelan population, which is now starting to vote, are deciding with Trump. And I think that little message is, at this point in time, looking very, very interesting. So TNT the Goat says, I saw the JSK forecast today that Georgia is so competitive, it's a coin toss. You know, I think that could definitely be true. Now, with Georgia, the thing is, we must analyze that truly it comes down to a couple things. One, is African-American turnout going to be sky high? Other thing we have to analyze, voter suppression, which is really going to be a very impactful thing. Voter suppression is going to come down to, let's see how Brian Kemp is feeling, because that's who decides that, and their Secretary of State. But if they don't suppress the vote, the Democrats might have a strong showing in Georgia. In addition, the suburban votes in suburban Atlanta if they turn out for the Democrats the way they did in the midterm, there's a chance the Democrats might win there. I think Donald Trump probably will still narrowly hold on to the state of Georgia because I think some of the suburbs that might have reluctantly voted for some of the Democrats in 2018, those suburbs are going to flip. Well, you have a live channel on election day. So I am hoping to do that. I'm starting to plan all of that and getting all of that ready. It's a lot of setup because I mean election day, it's very interesting. So I'm gonna have that up so you guys can have my election coverage, not from one of these bigger major news sources, which oftentimes have either very unbiased or biased commentary, and they sometimes take a longer time to report things. And I think it's interesting just hearing it from a teenager like me. Willie is awesome. Number 2 asked, "Hi, do you think Trump won the debate if Biden's margin nationwide has increased by 2.6 then?" So here's the thing about debates. Winning the debate doesn't necessarily mean that's going to help you out more. Here's the other thing. I was talking with one of my friends the other day, and this is what we're saying. Winning the debate when it comes, there's 2 different metrics. Who won and who had kind of better arguments in a way, who was able to attack, who was able to counterattack. In ways, I'm looking at the debate side of things. Now, helping out electorally, we could definitely say Biden got helped out by a lot. Why? Because expectations and bars was set very low for Joe Biden coming into those debates. I think no one can lie that people had very low expectations of Biden. Were Biden's expectation out of the park, home run? Probably not. And that debate wasn't really won, I mean, majorly by anyone. It was a lot closer than people thought. And in a sense, that really hurt Donald Trump. Not hurting Donald Trump, but just that overperformance from Biden catapulted him. And since Donald Trump didn't overperform or perform majorly over Biden, there's really no way to, like, Donald Trump was not going to gain for that debate. Who wants it more, Biden? I don't know. Okay, the Lincoln Project think that Biden should spend time in Texas. What do I think? Overall, I think that currently a thing is that we must look at is that in Texas, Biden, if he wins Texas, he's going to lock up the map for the Republicans. After Texas is gone, there's absolutely no route for the president for the Republicans. Even if they pull off the biggest Hail Mary and win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, they would have to do that. And I think even that's pushing it close. So strategically, locking up the map, amazing move. Realistically, I think they shouldn't do that. That's a very dumb move in a way because, remember, it's all about the money. The Democrats, they are raising a lot of money. However, money's not endless. I mean, money is endless. So you have a lot of these Senate races, which are high cost. Look at North Carolina. Look at Montana. Look at states like Kansas, which are increasingly having to spend a lot more money. South Carolina, Arizona, all these key Democratic races you're trying to win, it takes a lot of money. And flushing your money all the way to states where maybe it's not really that important might be dumb. And I think right now we're strictly on a money game because the Republicans are out of money. The Democrats have money. However, the Democrats are going to of course, spend everywhere. But truly, it's a money game. So I don't know if it's the smartest thing. I do not think Biden is a socialist, perhaps. However, maybe some of the people in the Democratic Party are socialist. So directly, I don't think he's a socialist, but maybe some people in the Democratic Party, yeah. So I am 13. Are you saying Biden is a socialist? No, I'm not saying Biden is a socialist. I am saying that perhaps some members of the Democratic parties are socialist. Do you think Cal Cunningham might have lost because of the texting? In a conservative state like North Carolina, I think that's really going to be kind of like a little bit more of like a very hard hit for Cal Cunningham. I read the text. I saw the thing. I read the article. It wasn't horrible, I would say, but perhaps in a very, like, it wasn't as bad as past political scandals. So I would say that truly not going to affect him that much. But it might, since the race is close in that state, I think it might push it a little bit over into his favor. I think he's going to win, though. I mean, the momentum right now is like on Tillis a little bit because it's kind of COVID-19. He has COVID-19, all those different things, in addition to the Cal Cunningham text. If that's the case, pardon my spelling, are more like the Cubans that they are to Latinos. I'm not sure. Okay, I was talking to Fabrizio. Oh, okay. So, I mean, overall, a lot of these races are very interesting. Also, will you have, like, people, like, subscribers on Election Day to see their take on the election and at that moment? Because I really want to be, like, a pundit on Election Day. I'm really working that out right now. I'm planning out what I'm doing for Election Day, how I'm going to run about it, Definitely, I would announce it, and then, I mean, by next week, what my plan is for election day. So then that way, if I have people like subscribers on as pundits, I'm gonna have to like do stuff beforehand, like interview and things before we can have everyone like the subscribers that might come on the channel, and that way we can have a very big election night coverage, which perhaps is not going to be that much as an election night, but more of the commentating, seeing the results that we do have. So definitely, and I'm definitely working that on. What tactics would you do if you were Trump? Right now, if I were Trump, I would probably one give up because you're flushing too much money on this presidential race when the Republicans need a lot of money for their Senate race. But let's say I had to continue and actually try to win. I would personally probably do one of two things. Try to use Biden's words against him in the Midwest. Focus heavily with the funding in the Midwest. Spend a lot of time there. Have surrogates spend there a lot of time because, well, campaigning and fundraising in other places is great, especially the fundraising. But more of the campaigning. Campaigning in Nevada, for example, probably a bad idea. It's not going to happen. And I think he should have spent more time in the Midwest, stay stuck in the Midwest. And one reason we could say that Biden went up in the Midwest is why, when we saw his first time campaigning and things like that in person after he left his studio in the basement, what did we see? What was one of the clear changes that we saw? He was sticking to the Midwest, and that really speaks to the voters. So I think that strategy might definitely work. Do you think that Trump have any sort of chance at this point? I don't say it's impossible because, again, remember that like with Hillary Clinton, we were seeing a race that was pretty stacked against Donald Trump. However, it's a different race. I would say that right now the chances are 9 out of 10 Joe Biden wins. Not impossible. There is still a possibility. I wouldn't count Donald Trump out. However, looking at the things that have happened and have transpired during these last 4 years, especially this last month, it's getting a lot tighter and tighter for Trump. The pathways are locking up. And what tactic would you do if I were Biden? If I were Biden, I would just sit back and relax because the more, if you think about it, Biden is the type of candidate that the more he opens his mouth, the more bad things happen. And I think we can say the thing about Donald Trump. If Biden was quiet, he just went, shook hands, did everything, do everything like he's doing it now. Don't go too crazy. Don't go too ham spending money. Stay calm. Stay good. And I think he could easily do very well. What state Biden in 2020 doing better than Clinton in 2016 in the polls this time? Well, we have a lot. We have Florida. We have the Rust Belt. We have states like Arizona where Biden is performing. Texas, Georgia, Ohio, Iowa, a lot of these states, a month before the election, seeing Joe Biden perform very well. Now, our October surprise has been this whole year. This pandemic was the big October surprise. I want to quickly talk about that. So, right now, we're going to be looking at a October surprise, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. Donald Trump testing positive for COVID-19 was a big October surprise. Now, I'm wondering what's going to be the October surprise, because usually there's an October surprise that affects both sides. How close are other countries paying attention to this election? Oh, they're paying attention very closely. Now, I'm going to tell you this. So, when it comes to the governments, they really care because if we think about it in a foreign point of view, a lot of these governments, they're interested about this election because Donald Trump has been very tough about trade. He wants America and its trade deals to essentially be more beneficial to America, and perhaps for some foreign nations that might not be what's most beneficial for them. So a lot of these nations economically, they're looking at this election, and a lot of them would be hoping, because the Democrats usually are the ones that take more of a little more globalist approach. Not that that's bad, because there's different factors and that could be debatable, whether economic interdependence amongst many different nations is good or bad. However, most nations would probably side here with the Democrats because it just benefits more nations kind of with the democratic economic policy for trade. Now, when it comes to leaders and their own personal beliefs, I think Russia, China, all that different mess that they're saying that they want Donald Trump to win, I don't believe it because it's very unbelievable. Because looking at things other historically, the Democrats are a little bit more to the left, and again, these are big socialist blocked, if you call them, if not communist, I guess, if we're talking about those nations like Russia and China, they might want the Democrats to win if you think about it logically, but impact won't be much. Okay. Nicholas asked, there would be have to be an upset for at least +5 in almost every toss-up state for Trump to win. I think yeah, that's true. But again, those states are not no, they're no longer toss-ups. They're states that are crucial battleground states. They're battleground states because those seats could be well into the 10%. However, that doesn't change that they're going to be the tipping points of this election. Well, they think that Trump is a clown, so they want him out. What do you think about Trump foreign policies to China? I think foreign policy to China was a thing that they needed to take care of, definitely. Now, I mean, I personally would have done something more like similar to what Trump did because you could go about this diplomatically, which I mean, they tried that. It didn't work. And they need to try to get the best amount of things out of the economic deals. They have to get the best amount of everything and benefit America. So overall, foreign policy with China has been pretty well. And considering that China is rising up and they're becoming more of like a target, I guess, and they're targeting us in ways, and they're becoming not more. They're becoming somewhat of an enemy, but they're also becoming a threat. So foreign policy with China, which I actually studied for like a big part of a course I took in college, like in like a summer course, that essentially it's very dependable, and you could see different things that benefit both sides. So I think overall it's pretty good. I mean, if we could have waited and see how it would have turned out, however, the way it turned out probably benefits a lot of people. You're a moderate leftist, so if I put the pundit thing on an election night, make sure to have people on maybe like the center right, keep it balanced. That is definitely what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to keep it as balanced as possible. Try to have all ideologies represented. People down the middle, people more to the right, people more to the left, people in the center. It's very important to have opinions on all sides of the aisle because that gives the viewers the perspective they need to see what they believe is right, what they believe is wrong, and what they believe will affect this election. Our chances high that we know the result on election night, they definitely increased as we've seen Biden surge. However, the chances are not astronomical, but they've gone up. And I think mostly since Biden is leading by so much in these crucial states, we definitely might. If you feel comfortable about sharing, are you more of a liberal or conservative, and which candidate would you vote for if you could vote? So right now, I mean, I feel very down the middle. I mean, I would say I'm very moderate on most issues. I would say, like, for the most part, pretty down the middle. If I had to vote during this election, I would probably side with President Trump for one major reason: his foreign policy. Other people care about other things like the pandemic, but for me, foreign policy is pretty important as foreign policy affects domestic issues. And I personally believe Donald Trump has done a pretty decent job with foreign policy. And just looking at some of the way he's done things, of course, both candidates are not perfect. And I would consider voting for Joe Biden if I could vote, because again, I'm only 13. However, I think both candidates probably deserve my vote. So that answers your question. I have maybe a true independent. So yeah. Do your parents know that you have a YouTube channel? And if they do, they support you? Yeah, they definitely know I have a YouTube channel, and they definitely support me 100%. And I mean, it's because they want me to succeed in anything that I do. So it's always good to have. And I also have a big support from a lot of you in the Purple Political Talk community that are always on the live streams commenting down in the comment section, down in the community tab. And I really am thankful for all of you that do that. We've come over from early beginnings, 100 subscribers to now we're over 1,250. Very good numbers on our sides, you know. Are you going to do political science at university? We'll make your okay. So for university, to answer your first question, I want to do political science, maybe communications, but I want to go maybe into like, I think if my YouTube like starts growing at a fast rate and it can become mainstream, I'm probably going to study political science and communications. Now, if in the future I might change my mind and might want to do politics itself, like be in the ring of fire, maybe go into law or something, it really changes. Like I'm 5 years away from going to college, and I hope to get into some of the nation's top colleges, and I just hope to have a very good future career. What day will you make your final kids? Or my final picks? So my final pick is probably going to be on election day. Earlier on, I will post my final pick, and I think the day of the election, I'm off of school, so I could probably actually do a couple live streams during the day to give you guys an update about the election. And then during kind of the election night portion, like maybe at 6 or 7, we do an in-depth analysis, like with the pundits, everything made, so we have everyone participating in the election. Yeah, I have pretty good parents. Did you analyze the 2016 election closely 4 years ago when you were about 9 years old? Definitely not as close as this time around, but I definitely paid attention a lot to the things with the polling data. Understanding the electoral system, I mean, is a pretty complicated task when you're a 9 year old, and I comprehended it and I could explain it very well. And I think I looked at it in a way more of issues. I focused more on the issues and that side of thing. And I looked at some of the data and looked at some of the early election predictions. There is this YouTuber out there, if you guys would like to check him out. His name is Jonathan Lamy, and he was like a very original, I guess, election predictor, if you could call the political science community on YouTube, if that what we could call ourselves. That and he was like in 2016 he did those videos. I watched those videos. I watch a lot of the CNN, Fox News reports. I've been into politics like ever since I was pretty little. I mean, since I was 8, and I've been learning all over the years, and I've taken all these different things, and that's why you could say you probably have like maybe a little bit more of the average 13-year-old's political knowledge. But like I said, Purple, I have your email, so I can help you plan your election night with your. Yeah, definitely. If you like would want to like send me an email, shoot me an email about any concerns, comments, suggestions, please feel free to do so. You guys can see the email. It's on my About tab. For business inquiries, it says that you guys can check it out. Do you follow Dr. Rachel Bickford and Professor Larry Sabato? I don't follow them avidly. I see them when they do interviews on mainstream media. I often read up on their reports and things like that, but not as much. Dude, you're fantastic. You give me hope for humanity. Love it. Keep it up. Thanks, kid. At this point in time, I'm going to tell you something, like guys, like this election, it's been crazy. Looking back in March, I wouldn't have expected, before the pandemic even, this election to change as much as it did. And it's because of this pandemic that Biden really does have a real big lead over Donald Trump. This pandemic did it for Trump. Donald Trump was in rocky waters. It was only very small rocky waters. Over the course of the pandemic, it's gotten a lot worse. I mean, the waters we're getting huge waves. Donald Trump is on a sinking ship. And it's getting worse. This pandemic really did it for him. And I think that it's still not impossible. However, it's unlikely at this point. So I think at this point in time, we're looking at a very, 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 very interesting race. And I mean, overall, the election is a very, 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 very interesting subject. What sport do you do? I love watching American football. So I play baseball, and then I also like watching soccer. I'm really into European soccer. So if you guys want to know like a little bit more about me, that's like something that I like when it comes to sports. And I will tell you something right now. This the Senate races right now. I haven't made a Senate video in a long time. I'm probably gonna do that for tomorrow's video. I'm really sorry about that. I haven't done an update on the Senate video because these Senate races are a little hard to analyze, and I've started to look into more of the things that are happening in these individual races, because chances are that because the big events usually happen like the last couple days until election day. So I want to give you guys the best research video when it comes to the recent events, things that have come out, because those things usually come down to the like individual local stations and things like that. So I've done a lot of research, and then I'm gonna put up the Senate video up soon so you guys can see a clear updated map, and I could show you guys how the electoral or the senatorial map is looking at a nationwide scale. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys think about Donald Trump's diagnosis of COVID-19? Do you guys think it's really going to affect him? Or is it going to be something symbolic? Well, he got it. It's not going to be the end of the world. At this stage, is Joe Biden's worst case about 290 or less? I think it's definitely less. I think his worst case right now would be 268 maybe. Because I don't see Donald Trump winning in the worst case. Yeah, like 268, maybe like 300. I mean, 232. I think currently his worst case would be 232, but it's very unlikely. Realistic worst case, probably like 268, 266. Yes, catching COVID pretty much destroyed his remaining chances of winning. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Well, that's one of the things. And I think the way that like because here's the thing as well. It's not Donald Trump's fault that like the White House, I think they should have gotten tested before they let anyone in that White House. It's going to seem like the White House is Donald Trump's responsibility, but it truly isn't. It's up to his chief of staff, and that's just for his staff. And then just generally speaking, the whole White House. So I think at this point in time that COVID thing really hurt him. And going to the hospital, horrible. They had him dead. I don't know if you guys remember in 2016 when Hillary Clinton had pneumonia, that she was at the 9/11 memorial. It was actually earlier on in the election. However, she passed out. She fainted, and the Facebook bots, which really had an impact on the election. If you look at it, there was a study by the University of Ohio. I don't know if you guys have read about it. And Hillary Clinton talked about this in one of her I guess post-election tours of what she lost when she wrote a ton of books back in 2017 or yeah 2017 2018, where she talked about the University of Ohio saying that that moment really was one of the big changes in their campaign because they had her dead. Which, if we're seeing with how the media is taking things. I don't know about you guys, but with what I'm hearing, like some of the way they're wording things, it sounds like Donald Trump is like in a horrible state. Which in reality, if you look at his messages that he has tweeted out, if you look at what he says, like when he gives those video messages, he's doing fine. I mean, he has the virus, he has those little implications. However, I mean, overall, I would say that he's doing fine. And yeah, I mean, the COVID thing really was a disaster for him. And overall, that really hurt. That really hurts. I guess the overall, I mean, the Republican Party, and also the Amy Coney Barrett hearings might actually be delayed because we canceled all Senate activities until October 19th. So that's gonna push it close to election day, which not ideal. I would say that, but especially when it comes to Amy Coney Barrett, it's not morally wrong. It's not ideal. However, not great. He was literally on steroids, and you can see how hard the breathing. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's really it's also a thing of how you see things. Because again, this is all about perception. My perception of something could be completely different to your perception of something. So who knows? So, oh hey Jamish, how are you? So I think yeah, at this point in time, the COVID thing really did it hard for him. And for the Republicans, I think that might be the delayed of the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. Now, I think hear me out on the next thing. This sounds completely crazy, but it's a conspiracy theory. What if not Mitch McConnell, but Chuck Schumer just wanted to delay the hearings? What if he just infected someone with COVID and just put them in the rose garden? It's a possibility. It's probably not likely, but imagine that would be a crazy scenario we could think about. Because again, the chances are this got in there accidentally. But remember, it's Washington, and absolutely everything is possible. Hi, Election Center. How are you doing today? Is Trump using 2016 tactics? I mean, he was using 2016 tactics, those in-person rallies that had thousands of people show up, even at times of a pandemic. He used those strategies. However, those strategies probably don't work anymore now that he has COVID. He's in the hospital. He really can't go anywhere. Jason, but except with an M. Oh, sorry. I'm really sorry. So it'd be Jason. Jason. Okay. Okay. If it actually happened and we find out our democracy is finished, yes, definitely. And I would say this: both sides of the aisle have to be accountable. If the Democrats did something that was messed up, not because the Democrats have the control of everything, they have to be held accountable. And if the Republicans did something, not because they're the Republicans and they're in power, they have to be held accountable. And I think those are the foundations and the pillars of democracy. I'm from Wisconsin. The key for Biden is getting out the vote. The two liberal areas, Milwaukee and Madison, did not get out the vote in 2016. And yet again, keep in mind, these things are more and more again. It's about getting out the vote, voter turnout. And that's one thing that we're seeing the Democrats failing to do. Do my family argue a lot about politics? Not really, because, like, for the most part, we all kind of have the same views. But again, there's always those disagreements about certain issues, which, I mean, probably, like, every person in my family, like, they have one issue they disagree with everyone else. But for the most part, like, it's very interesting to see. So Milwaukee and Madison, yeah. So it's about margins if you think about it critically. It's about margins. And think about it. In the state of Florida, for example, that's my home state. We saw the margins amongst Hispanics lower, right, for Joe Biden. That's really going to affect him statewide. So like you said, Eric, getting out the vote is important for both sides. the less the Democrats go out to vote, the higher the chances they might lose. Not maybe lose, but lose some support might be. So keep that in mind. So yeah, I mean, overall, this election has really been crazy. Are you involved in campaigning or not really? No, I don't really campaign. I am just here like analyzing the facts, and even like when I go do other stuff, I don't really campaign for things like that. Because I don't really have a strong preference when it comes to this election. And I mean, overall, this election, I want to see what you guys think. Has this election been different, similar, or when it comes to what you thought and to what it is, has it been similar to what you thought and what it is? Do you think what you thought was completely drastically different, or you think it was like always going to be like a big, very big crapshoot on how the election was going to go? So, what do you guys think? I think this election is very different from what I expected it to be. Again, this COVID situation totally different. I mean, with the pandemic that we have currently, impossible to tell. I mean, because look at the things that happened. I mean, the pandemic caused 200,000 American deaths. The pandemic, the pandemics caused this economic downfall for our nation. The pandemic caused, even we could say, some of the Black Lives Matter movement in a way, because the people usually in their heads, after spending so much time alone, they start thinking about issues. They start thinking about all these different things. So I think at this point in time, this pandemic has really been a changing factor. And again, everyone's life has been changed. No matter if you're American, but everyone in the world truly has been changed. Why? Because essentially, we're all having to live amongst these lockdowns. We all have to live with these masks. We all have to live with all the economic damage. So at this point in time, it's something that has affected all of us. And I think that is kind of the big deciding factor when it comes to this election, like, and the biggest changes from it that we may not have expected. When I saw Hispanics outside the hospital where Trump, it was in Maryland, which is very blue state, the Hispanic people were waving Trump flag. It just surprised me. Donald Trump has increased support amongst Hispanics, however you look at it. Of course, mostly is Venezuelans and Cubans that may have flipped, but also amongst Mexicans, amongst Guatemalans, amongst Hondurans, amongst Nicaraguans. All these different groups of people that traditionally vote Republican or Democrat are starting to think about more openly voting for Donald Trump. Donald Trump has increased amongst minorities, amongst blacks, amongst Hispanics, amongst Asians. He has increased amongst all minorities, which is something very interesting, and it shows the diversification of the Republican Party. If there's one thing the Republican Party is going to take out of this election, is the beginning of the diversification of their party, allowing all communities in. They focused heavily during the RNC on the diversification, which for a long time people have been saying it's something crucial for the Republicans. If the Republicans did not diversify, this election, they were done. Game over. But now with rising stars like John James in Michigan, Tim Scott in South Carolina, with the Attorney General David Cameron in the state of Kentucky, with Nikki Haley, with all these minorities, truly that is one of the things that we're seeing. Okay, so did Bob Woodward cost Trump? Yeah, I mean, Bob Woodward definitely caused Donald Trump a little bit. And I think at this point in time, that was one of the things that he made a mistake on, because now he's on tape saying that he downplayed the pandemic. Again, I think the context was taken a little bit out. However, here the context doesn't matter. It's what the media is showing. And here's why. Communications, in this case, the big mainstream media, is truly who has the political power. They can move the needle to however they want. And at this point in time, those claims, even though they might have been taken out of context 10 million%, those claims are going to hurt Trump. So yeah, definitely. What are the most reliable voting demographics and in which age group? I would say right now the most reliable voting demographic might be Black Americans amongst the ages of maybe 50 and above. And those voters, when they vote, tend to very oftenly vote for the Republicans. And for the most part, a lot of the big changes with demographics that we're seeing actually are the younger demographics. Oh, hey, political analysis election predictions. Nice to see you today in the chat. Do you think that we're going to see such a damning October surprise from the GOP like we saw in the FBI reopening the case in Hillary emails last time in the election? I think the October price for the like Republicans to the GOP, it's not going to be anywhere as huge. Now, what the thing that we might see is the Russian thing, which came out last week. I don't know if you remember that, to the Senate Judiciary Committee from the Director of National Intelligence, where we saw some intel on how the election might have actually been against Trump when they tried to frame everything on Donald Trump. I think the October surprise might not be something as damning as the emails, and the impact won't be as large. Right now, Donald Trump is in a hole, and to get up, he's going to have to need some super big miracle because he is far behind. It's not over, but he's certainly behind. It's going to take very hard work over the next couple of weeks. It's going to take a very hard campaigning. It's going to have to take a very hard convincing of independents to really give Donald Trump this election. And it's in one of the bluest states in Maryland. That's true. I mean, the Hispanic vote is everywhere. I mean, Hispanics are everywhere. In even the most white states, for example, that you would think of, putting it at more of like a race and ethnicity standpoint, like Wyoming, there is Hispanics there, and Hispanics are a growing community, pretty much nationwide, and even in the least amount of places. You know, so Nicholas says, personally, he thinks that any Democratic candidate would defeat Trump even without COVID. I think not every single candidate. I think there's only very few that could have beat Trump easily before COVID. Before COVID, if we're talking before COVID, it's probably going to be Bloomberg, Biden. I think Bernie wouldn't have beaten Trump. Klobuchar, I think possibly Pete Buttigieg before COVID. After COVID, I think anyone you put up, even if it's Bill de Blasio, like super unpopular mayor in New York, and then imagine if he's just so unpopular in New York, very liberal state, imagine nationwide. I think he might have had a shot to beat Trump. Since Woodward got Trump to spill the beans. I mean, Bob Woodward was Donald Trump's political suicide in a way, which really hurt him a lot. Okay. Election Center says, what do you think Trump needs to do to win this election? What are his best steps? His best steps right now is to, one, use this COVID-19 diagnosis to his favor. Use that to his advantage. Use it in a way that really would benefit him. And I think at this point in time, that's something that he needs to do. And I think that he really needs to do that right now. Overall, we're looking at a race where where I think is going to be necessarily for Donald Trump to do that, using that COVID-19 to his favor. In addition, heavily focus on the Midwest. Don't go campaign in Nevada. Don't go campaign in Colorado. Don't go campaign in Virginia. Go focus on the Midwest. The chances are you're not going to win those states. So why bother? And for the Trump campaign, if they don't do that, they're toast. They're really going to be toast because there is not much they can do as a campaign to get away from that because they are behind, and those are the facts. It's going to be hard. However, like I said, not impossible. And I think just overall, it's really not going to be a big of an impact if he would have done a lot of these things earlier on, focused heavily on the Midwest instead of spending days going to California, going to Nevada, going to Colorado, going to Virginia. Maybe it would have been better off for him. But again, those stops need to be made sometimes. But I think, like John is pointing out in the chat, Trump won't change the lack of flexibility. It doesn't help him. He is not flexible, especially when it comes to campaigning it. If you guys go on PBS on YouTube and you guys look up the, I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's a documentary on how Donald Trump won the election. A lot of the advisors and the key campaign staffers, what did they say was that pretty much gave Donald Trump the election? It was Donald Trump's ability to stay persistent with the messages. And remember, in 2016, when we had the comments about the wall, those things that made the headlines, he didn't apologize. That caused press. And I mean, it was a smart move on his head. He was using the press. He was manipulating the press. And his campaign staffers really thought that was a very smart move. Do you see Montana going blue in the future? I would say Montana has a decent shot of going blue in the future. Not necessary, but it could be. With Montana, I think what really is going to be a factor is if areas like Billings and Helena in Montana, which are two growing areas of the country, that general northwest Pacific if we could call it that, like Idaho, Montana, those areas are rapidly growing. So maybe in the future, but probably more like in 10, 20, 15, or yeah, 10 to 20 years. So any number in between. Gonna be tough. Again, not impossible. And I think we might be looking at a very big shift on the electoral map. States that might have traditionally been more Republican or might be more become more Democrat. States that become more Democrat might become more Republican. It's just general shift to the electoral map. Usually, it's a cycle if we see kind of like how they switch, and we're currently looking at a point in time where we might be in for a long time of Democratic governance. The reality is that Trump has no functioning campaign organization. Events have overcome all the advantage of incumbency. Trump's campaign resembles Humphrey's campaign in 1968, overwhelmed by events. I think that's a pretty good analogy because Donald Trump right now, one, his campaign is lost without him because Donald Trump, he led the campaign. His campaign managers deal with all the ins and outs of it. But campaign strategy, it's up to Trump. Him being in the hospital, him kind of working at like a little bit of half capacity, if we could say so, really hurts. And Donald Trump ran very event-based, and he's running a very event-based campaign. Now, I think that at this point, it's very unorganized, and of course, they've been through some campaign, like a lot of campaign directors, like, and truly, that's been an issue for their campaign because, I mean, you should constantly have one person that runs your campaign for the whole time. It's been 32 years since Republicans had a landslide. Since then, we had 3 Democratic landslides. Overall, the country is shifting blue. Yes, that is true. And I think in general, it's because the whole world politically is shifting left and left. The United States is taking it actually pretty slowly, considering that it could be faster because of how big the world is changing and how rapidly it's changing. Because at the end of the day, I think we're seeing a very big global trend towards the left. However, I mean, the U.S. is probably never going to pass a point further than Bernie Sanders or an AOC. Yeah, I mean, 1988 was a pretty big victory. It depends on what you consider a landslide. Please, if you guys want to put in the chat, what would you guys consider a landslide? So I would say 350 to 375 electoral votes. So by those means, Obama was a landslide, and then Clinton was a landslide. I mean, both of his victories were kind of landslides. Has also Trump's fatigue taking into a toll in America? In other words, people are getting sick of all this drama. I think people are. And I've been covering this race for what? Almost 6 months already. And I've actually it's a lot of stress. You're getting a lot of information and it's everything super crazy. Everything's coming from one side to the other, left and right, left and right. We're seeing a very crazy campaign. And overall, this campaign is very, very hectic. Now, the campaign is not as hectic as we thought it in certain ways. It's not as bad as the 2016 campaign. 2016 campaign was horrible. However, it's been very, very, very interesting. So Ryan says 325 plus, 350 plus, I would say is kind of the benchmark. Maybe, and I mean, it really does depend because it depends how you look at it. Do you think Trump will win at all? I currently think that he might win, but I think right now odds are in Biden's chances. By today's standard, it's 360 electoral votes or more, but just because it's more polarized than it used to be. Yes, and I think honestly that's one thing that we're seeing. Safe states before, they had a chance to go flip completely for one party. However, not the same thing anymore. We're seeing that be very different, and I think that's pretty interesting as well because just looking at the polarization of this election, it's been for example, states like Montana. No, well, not Montana is not a good example. Idaho is probably not going to go blue, even if it narrowed down a lot. And a state like Connecticut is probably not going to go red. However, back in the 90s, there was a chance that maybe it'll flip and stuff like that. They didn't used to be so many safe states like today. That's true. And then the states that are swing states are just going to be the same old swing states as there have always been. So, it's not, I guess, the same thing. And of course, the polarity of the electoral map has definitely changed. Where before it was a lot of more contested, the whole map was almost contested. There was points in time where California come down to the last couple of votes. I think 359 is about, yeah. I mean, that's fair. Like you have to win like a 2/3 of the electoral vote. Well, that's not 2/3, but 2-to-1 ratio. Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair call. So then just say 360. Will voter turnout be high? Yeah, definitely. Voter turnout is going to be through the roof. However you put it, and that voter turnout is probably going to be pretty high. So at the end of the day, it's looking pretty good for the Democrats in a way because they're going to have high voter turnout. California was a swing state. Yeah, definitely. And that's going to be interesting. I am voting for the one without COVID. Okay, so you're voting for Biden. Okay. Okay, thank you, TNT, to go. After the live stream, I'm gonna make sure to go check it out, and I'll definitely be working on that pretty soon. What do you think about the changing landscape of swing states? Iowa, Ohio, Virginia, Nevada, and New Hampshire are moving away from being swing states. I think, like we've been talking about here, it's the polarity of the electoral map. Like the thing is that each and every day there's going to be less swing states. There's going to be contested states during this election. Like truly, what are the swing states? True swing states have a pretty much 50-50 possibility of going to either candidate. We can count them on one palm. Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Iowa. That's it. It's very, 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 very low, landslide should have a candidate over 55% of the popular vote and over 400 electoral votes, similar to Eisenhower Stevenson's campaign. Pretty good point. New Hampshire will get closer after this election, possibly. If I'm correct, they don't really like Donald Trump there, so maybe. Most experts say suburbs will heavily be for Biden. Although the thing with the suburbs is that's what the experts say, but I would be surprised a little bit if they go super massively for Biden. I think definitely he's going to underperform Hillary Clinton in the suburbs. Here's why. The Black Lives Matter movement is something that really affects the. Well, I mean, I'm misusing the phrase. It's not the Black Lives Matter movement, but kind of the bad parts of the Black Lives Matter movement that's really affecting suburbs in the way that they make their decisions. Especially with the defunding the police movement. That's really going to be like the most impactful thing to suburbs, along with COVID. And I think that for that reason, that might shy some suburban voters away from the Democrats. I think the Democrats will definitely win the Senate. Absolutely. At this point in time, it's very, very likely. It's becoming more and more likely every day where the Democrats have a lot of races for safety net. We lose in Montana, great. We have Iowa right next door. We lose in Iowa, that's also great. We can go win in Kansas. They have so many races lined up where they're probably going to take off over the Senate. 4 million people have already voted while Biden is leading big in the polls. That is true. And I think, honestly, maybe not necessarily mean anything because, again, it could just be 4 million Democratic voters or like 3 million Democrats, 1 million Republicans. However, we don't know, but definitely it's going to have an impact. Here's one of the flaws of early voting. Let's suppose you vote early, but then you say, whoa, I don't like that candidate. They just said whatever, a scandal. That's what's messed up about mail-in voting. Not mail-in voting, but absentee voting and voting early. That, like, you would have to be someone that's really not affected from that. What is your favorite political channel apart from my own? I'm really into, LTE. I'm really into political analysis, election predictions. He has a great upcoming channel. Red Eagle. I'm really into EP Official. My friend Unbiased Election Projections. All great election channels as well. You have a choice to vote early or not, so I'm fine with it. Right, because it's your choice. But, it's more like a risk that you're taking, I guess. So Narendra says, I live in Texas. They're active suppress the vote campaigns out here. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that Governor Greg Abbott had signed a bill or executive order to say that put one ballot per state. Do you think that the Northeast will get closer? Probably not, unless they run, like the Republicans run a very good candidate. Charlie Baker, if they run, maybe will get closer. However, that would never happen because the Republicans probably should never run a Charlie Baker at a nationwide race because that would definitely fail, like in the Sun Belt. Oh yeah, Sununu. Yeah, Chris Sununu. They have to run moderate. It's like, yeah, you're right. Because again, a lot of these northeastern Democrats are liberals, so that's true. LT has left wing bias, I think, though, and Red Eagle is way beyond the even point of having right wing bias. Yeah, I think here's the thing. I like listening to both sides and what both sides have to say. That gives us a true perspective of what's going on, and truly, that's the best thing to do. You're hearing things from both sides, and you're hearing things from both ears. Very important. Could the future of elections be electronic and perhaps run in blockchain? I think like elections for a pretty long time are still going to be end up being in person the way it is. As we transition through technology, as technology gets tested, technology gets more safer, secure, we might be able to reach those points. COVID is very sneaky. Trump is very early in the course of the illness and have a relapse. Liberals are moving south. That is definitely true. I think that's one big trend. The Sun Belt is being filled by liberals. However, not well, maybe yeah, like by more liberal voters than college educated voters. However, they might be leaving, but still that leaves a lot more people. Are the brains trust of Lincoln Project making a slight difference? I'm not sure. My dad thinks early voting is a democratic cheating. I don't think it's necessarily democratic cheating. Um, I think mail-in voting could be manipulated in some ways. Not going to make allegations right now. However, I will say the following: it's very imprudent to vote early. I would say in a way, like send in your mail-in ballots, but wait until like a week before election day because you don't know what can happen between now and election day. He thinks Oregon is going to go red. That's not going to happen until at least maybe 20 years down the road. Do you support mail-in voting? I think mail-in voting is fine because it's always happened. I do not support if people are trying to suppress the vote or voter fraud. And then I think it's in some ways it's not. It's a little flaw. I guess it has is you have so much time in between when you vote and the election that things could change. Do I think Pennsylvania is going to go red at this point? It's probably not. But can the Democrats get to 60 seats? Probably not. They have a chance, but not very likely. If Trump loses, we'll have nothing to talk about. I mean, yeah, that's probably true. Because look, a Biden-Harris administration is going to be pretty status quo. And do you guys think Biden will probably retire after his second term? He's going to say, peace out, hand it over to Harris. That is definitely a possibility. Not impossible, but definitely a possibility. What if you voted early, but then it came out your candidate was horrible? Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Especially, I highly doubt Pennsylvania will go red. Yeah, I mean Pennsylvania is probably very unlikely go red. Do you believe Florida will be called an election night? Oh, absolutely not. Florida's actually pretty efficient about calling votes. However, with such a big amount of mail-in voting, it's probably going to be unlikely. But it depends. How do you feel about Joe Biden's personality policy-wise? I mean, Joe Biden, here's the thing. I'm chill with him. I mean, he is a candidate that truly is calm, and he really doesn't have a problem. He's very status quo. Now, when it comes to his policies, the thing he's saying, maybe they're not wrong completely, but some of the policies, like, I think might be, like, a little bit too radical and giving things power too much to the left, which I think in a perfect democracy, extremism doesn't exist. We must have pretty much everything be kind of down the middle. So, with Joe Biden and his policies, what I'm more worried about is people behind him than Joe Biden himself. I don't know if you get what I mean. As a Pennsylvania resident, it could go either way. I mean, it could definitely go either way if you think about it, because there's always going to be those independent silent voters, which I've been talking about. But it doesn't necessarily mean that's highly likely. Could we know that on the night the results or an idea? Okay, we could have a big idea of what's going to happen. However, keep in mind, mail-in voting, the way it works, I mean, let's look at historical races that have been changed by mail-in voting. Florida in 2000, it wasn't changed by that much because it still went to Bush. However, another big example was the Arizona Senate race in 2018. Martha McSally was leading with 90% reporting. We got a ton of mail-in ballots from the military because, again, the state of Arizona is inhabited by a lot of the military families. So it ended up being that Kirsten Sinema was able to make up the lead and get ahead by 2 points. So mail-in ballots definitely have an effect. So we probably would have an idea, but not a complete, concrete what is going to happen. Because truly, that we probably won't know until perhaps a couple of weeks after. Biden will not be running for re-election at age 81. That is definitely true. I mean, if Biden runs for re-election at age 81, it's going to be plus one. People would probably not vote for him because why would you want vote for an 81-year-old president? Donald Trump's 78. He's 80. I think he's getting older or 70 something. I'm not sure the exact age. However, it's very interesting to see what states will be leaning the microsm of the country's leaning. I'm not really sure. Do you think the future presidential candidates should be by law and their tax returns, health records, and business dealings records? I think that shouldn't be released. I think that's personal stuff and it's between them and the FEC. If the candidate wishes to send it out, perfect. But I guess all of that information is pretty like sensitive, I guess. And I think it should be kept under wraps for anyone that wants to keep it up under wraps. And of course, I would say more of a don't enforce it, but encourage it. Encourage candidates to increase the information they send out to the people. There should be an age cap on candidacy. In your opinion, yeah, I think that's true. I think age candidacy, I think it should be 75. Because let's think about it. Like, no offense to like older people, but 80-year-olds, 80. What does an 80-year-old do at a foreign policy level? How are they going to be able to fight the battle? That's the thing with older candidates. They might not be able to do that and perform all the duties to the best of their abilities and defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. If they're not able to do that, they're not filling what the role says. So essentially, I think there should be somewhat of an age gap. You're a Biden supporter, but see his role as one of the big restorers of normal political order in the U.S. I think, yeah. So if you're a person who wants political order in the U.S., kind of not political order, because I mean we have political order, but kind of more status quo, slowly, like swing one way, saying everything the other way. Politics, Joe Biden is your guy. I think if you think that Washington has too many insiders instead of outsiders, then I think maybe Donald Trump might be your guy. I just think younger people are more representative of the will of the people. I think that's true. And younger people are in the loop about things in more ways. Because, like, not that older people are not, but in certain ways, they are. So that's something to keep in mind because um, that's something that's actually really interesting. Purple Political Talk is gaining subscribers lightning fast. Interesting. I hope that I'm actually getting subscribers lightning fast, but hopefully I did. And I'm going to tell you something right now. This last election, this election is going to be insane. It's going to be one for the history books. Donald Trump will always be remembered as that president who had a very, very crucial re-election campaign. Going to be one of the closest, I would say. And for a sitting president in modern political history, which we don't see often, get them being unseated. I mean, when was the last president to be unseated by re-election? George H.W. Bush. One of the Bushes. Bush Sr., let's just call him that. So essentially with that, I mean, it's very likely that we might just see that it's going to be one for the history books. What is ACB in my opinion? I mean, I think Amy Coney Barrett I think she's fine. I mean, she is a normal person, judge. I think she would interpret the Constitution as written. Like, I don't know if you guys watch this video. If I can find it, I will leave it in the link for you guys. But Amy Coney Barrett gave a speech at the University of Jacksonville where she talked about how the Constitution or the law or the law in the court is not about being a conservative and having conservative ideals, and it's not about being liberal and having liberal ideals, but rather how you interpret the law. A conservative usually reads the Constitution as written, as it was written in the 1800s, and for the liberals, they usually extend a little bit more the definition of certain laws. So you should take it as you wish. But I mean, way too Christian. But it's not like she's part of a church or something. Like, she's part of a church, but she's not a church leader. So here's the thing with religion and politics: separation of church and state, definitely. However, because someone has political views, shouldn't disqualify you from a job. If he wins Wisconsin and New Hampshire, he will win. He will win probably. RBG was Jewish, and I mean, I think that the Constitution. Here's the thing: doesn't state that you can't have religious affiliation in the court because all the judges have religious affiliation. Or ACB, Amy Coney Barrett, just happens to be more conservative. a more conservative Catholic, and her personal morals might not be, might have a little bit of an impact, but not much. If the national polls was right, Trump would lose by the popular by biggest margin since 19. Yeah, definitely, and 14% loss. I mean, that's insane. I mean, a 14% loss, like very very large number. Trump would win in Wisconsin. He pulled out Arizona, and Biden doesn't win. Oh wait, hold on. But Trump won't win Wisconsin. He pulled out of Arizona. I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, if Trump doesn't start pulling in and putting money into these states, he's not going to win. And it's just that they're short on money. They really don't have anything else to do. Do you approve of President Trump? Basically, do you think he's done more good or bad throughout his term? I overall approve of the president. He led a strong economy, and even through COVID-19 and its crisis, we're seeing a very big economic growth. Donald Trump is a person that thinks about trickle-down economics. He is someone that really focuses on trickle-down economics. COVID-19 handling wasn't the best. It could have improved. I think just considering how the power structure in the U.S. is set up with no one clear voice, because you have the CDC, White House, the governors, the mayors of each individual city, the mayors of counties, all these things contradicting each other. That was a big mess. Overall, he's caused some divisions, but divisions are always going to happen. Please remember there were divisions during Obama's presidency. It's just that maybe the Democrats weren't as outspoken about it. Overall, at an unbiased point of view, I think Donald Trump has done a pretty good job as president. He hasn't blown it out of the park. He hasn't been the best president in American history. However, he has made improvements overall. He's okay. There's mandatory voting in North Korea. Yeah, that's true. Trump left it to the states, and I think that's true. And I think that was a bad decision. But again, here's the thing: the states really wanted control of the COVID-19 crisis. And if we look at it and remember it as it was, we would remember that essentially the Democratic Party would they would say that they didn't want they wanted all the different governors controlling everything. We saw it with Andrew Cuomo, and the governors were actively lobbying for it. So that's something else to keep in mind. I mean, at this point, like Donald Trump, I would say he generally has done a pretty good job, not blowing it out of the park, to say the least. So let's see. Do I trust the polls? With the polls specifically, I mean, they're indicators. I've said this for a long time. They are indicators. They're not always 100% right. However, I mean, they could have some indications. But again, they're not perfect. Because again, anything in political science is never going to be perfect. For the most part, I mean, you could try as much as you want to try to be as precise as possible. Polling data is never going to be 100% correct. However you put it. Just keep that in mind. So let's see, we have some chats. I met Biden at DNC in New York City in 1992. I can attest that he has interpersonal skills that are superior. That is what Biden exude empathy and understanding. That's true. That's how the founding fathers wanted power to go to the states. So COVID should have went to the states because it's power. Right, but then when it came to controlling a crisis, when it came to taking care of these issues that affected Americans, that's one of the flaws of the Constitution. Do you think that it should be voting month rather than day? I think at the end of the day, like it should be voting month. I think you're right because, I mean, people just tend to vote earlier anyways. Like only a very small population of Americans or a part of the population actually do end up voting on election day. And that's something else to keep in mind. Like it's not completely necessary. So I think at this point in time, it's something to definitely keep in mind. And I mean, overall, I mean, this election has definitely been crazy. Historians consistently rank Trump near the bottom. Not my opinion, right? Because here's the thing. It depends, because it's something that's very subjective. Where it depends on how you look at things. In my eyes, Donald Trump has done a pretty good job. Do you think Trump's strategy to paint Biden as a radical socialist is working? Yes. Here is where that strategy is working amongst Hispanics. Now, amongst other groups of people, maybe not as much. However, maybe it has a little bit. And is Biden a whole socialist? No, he's not a socialist. However, it's been proven, and even they say it themselves, people in the Democratic Party are socialists. Is that good or bad? Chances are it's bad because past socialist governments have not worked. However, politically, amazing move. Is it completely factual? Probably not. So, guys, this was it for this live stream. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, please give it a huge thumbs up, like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. I hope you guys really enjoyed these live streams. I'm going to try to do more of these live streams because I think that at this point in time, it's just easier for me maybe to go live for things because um, since I started school for the in person, so that's going to be like a little harder to do things. So I think I'm just going to go live more often. And overall, I really enjoyed this live stream. I enjoyed talking to you guys. I enjoyed doing the other live stream where I did my video live. I like this type of live stream a little better because we get to like interact more. We get to ask questions, discuss the political climate in our nation. And overall, very interesting video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye. Please remember to like, subscribe, and see you guys tomorrow after the presidential debate, probably vice presidential debate. Bye, guys.